Well, hello, I've got 3 o'clock, so that means it's time to start art class. I'm glad you're watching, and we're going to have some fun today. We're talking about shapes. We started that last week and learned about 3 different kinds of shapes, and we're going to talk about that again. But before we do, I want to cover a couple of things here just really quickly. If you haven't heard yet, don't forget, we've got the October art contest going on. You can win any one of our downloadable titles or an Amazon, a $10 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is send me a photo of a drawing you did in this class, and you can send it to james@pence.com or info@seethelightshine.com, and you are entered. And it doesn't have to be the best picture, because that's not what we're judging on. It's just whoever enters is eligible, and we'll just draw a name out of the hat at the end of the month. So I hope you'll enter. Right now we only have 2 people, so your chances are really good to win something this month. So I hope you'll plan on that. And we got a shout out again this week, kind of a cool shout out. This is again to my granddaughter Ellie, who sent us a digital drawing that she did. She did this in an app called Medibang Paint, and it's kind of a long name here. Let's see if I can write it down. It's not going to let me write it because I'm not on the right layer. There we go. Let me get on the right layer here. There. And yep, that's not the right brush. Let's get something that I can write with and put it on white. Well, that's not white, is it? There we go. Medibang Paint. And Ellie did a great job. I messed it up because I drew on top of it there, but she drew some fire and smoke, and some of these digital apps are really fun to play with. This is I believe a free one, and it'll work on Android, it'll work on Windows. I just put a copy on my desktop. It'll work on Mac or iPad or whatever. So go ahead and check this one out if you want to do a little digital work. And thanks to Ellie for sending that on. And I've got to show you real quick what I've been working on. I finally finished my number 9 portrait that I've been doing. I'm working on drawing 30. Supposed to be in 30 in 30 days. It's going to take me a little longer than that because I tend to be a bit slow when I do this. And the latter part near the bottom, I really didn't spend a lot of time with. I just kind of wanted to finish it because my main focus right now is getting the hang of drawing faces. And so that was really what I was working on, and I'm ready to move on to the next face. So maybe by next week I'll have something else to show you. So that is what I'm working on. Remember, if you want to get better at drawing, draw every single day. Draw something. Now, last week we learned about shapes, and I focused on 3 different kinds of shapes. Let's see what kind of pen I've got there. Well, I got to be on the right layer again. Let's see, get on the right layer. That's the only thing with digital art. Layers, you live and die by them. Okay, let's see. Well, that's the wrong color now. There we go. Let's go with that. Okay. So we learned about 3 different kinds of shapes. We learned about geometric, abstract, and organic. And what we're going to do here for a little while is I'm going to take you through some photographs, and I'm going to show you some different shapes, and let's think through which kind they are. Also, I'm going to kind of point out how I would use shapes to draw with as we look at these, because we are working through the elements of art. We started with line and did contour drawings. That meant looking at something and drawing the outside of it. Then The next thing that we did was we began to look at shapes and understand different kinds of shapes. And what we're going to see is, as you look at something, if you can identify the shapes that you're seeing, it can help you to draw what you see. So let's look at a few shapes or a few photographs of different things. And when I show you the photograph, I'm going to give you a second or two to think about what you're seeing and try to identify the kind of shape it is. Is it geometric? Is it abstract? Or is it organic? And there are going to be some cases where it's actually kind of both. And we'll see those in just a minute. So here's the first one. And I say, where did it go? It's not showing up. It's because it's underneath another layer. There we go. There's the first one. All right. So what kind of shape is it? If you said geometric, you're right, because we've got triangles here that we're working with. And let's see, let me get on the layer I'm supposed to be on. There we go. We've got triangles. And basically, that's kind of a triangle. It's just kind of cut off. You got almost a trapezoid there. So I would call that a geometric shape. Okay, let's go to the next one and see what we've got. Turn off this one. And so what would you call that one? Give you a couple seconds to think it through. If you said organic, you're right. It's a bird's feather. And remember, one way to identify organic shapes, because they're not all actually of things that are themselves organic. Organic shapes are basically kinds of shapes that just don't fit into any other pattern. So this I would call an organic shape. It has a lot of different lines, and if we were trying to identify just how we might draw it, it really is roughly elliptical. So you can think in terms of geometric shapes too while you're doing this. Okay, here's the next one. And we've got a church. This is over in Austria. And what do we see? I see a lot of geometric shapes. I see a point. So there's a triangle there. And there's kind of again, sort of a trapezoid type shape. And more triangles. Got kind of an oval at the top and squared off at the bottom. So we would think geometric with this. You look at the tree, and the tree is going to be organic. Get a color there that you can see better. That is what we would call an organic shape. Okay. All right, let's go to another one. This is for the boys who really like Civil War. And if you're thinking geometric, you're right. These are geometric shapes. Got a big circle. And, these spokes, depending on how you drew them, would be very long rectangle. You might be saying, well, it actually looks more like a cylinder. In fact, the barrel of the gun really is what we would call a cylinder. And we're not identifying it like that right now because that's a step or two ahead. We're right now just focusing on a flat shape. And that's really important to understand because eventually we'll start thinking in terms of form, and that's when we take that shape and make it into something that is 3D or more 3D. So we've got a lot of circles here. We've got something of a very long rectangle, if you want to call it that. Of course, it's not squared off on the ends. We've got another circle here, and a lot of circular shapes in here. Begin as you begin to look at things, look at them to try to identify the shapes that they're made of, and it will help you draw. Okay, so let's go on to another one. This one might be a little tricky, and there are really two different kinds here. So here we go. We got mountains, and we've got the sun setting. Okay, now I'm going to give you a second to think of what would you call the mountains, and then what would you call the sun? Okay, let's do the mountains first. I would call those organic. because they don't really fit into any defined type of shape, like a circle or a square or whatever. They're very rough and laid out and just this kind of unique shapes. But what about the sun? The sun, I would actually kind of put into both categories depending on how you're considering it. The shape obviously is a geometric shape because as you look at it, it looks like a circle. Now, of course, we know the sun is a sphere, not a circle, but looking at it flat, it's a circular shape. So it is geometric in that sense. But I would also call it organic in the sense if you're looking at what the sun actually is, and the sun actually is it's not something that is man-made and that was made deliberately to be geometric. It by its nature, kind of like the feather, is organic. But for purposes of art, we would call it a geometric shape. Okay, so we're going to go on to another one. Okay, windmills. What do you think about the windmills? Organic or geometric? And of course, these are geometric. We've got circles, we've got a triangle, we've got a bunch of rectangles in here, rectangles inside I guess this would be more a trapezoid. So we've got, and if you count each of the boards on there, you got lots and lots of rectangles. And so that is what the windmills would be. Okay, so ready? Here we go. Okay, poppies. And what would you call those? Of course, those are, without question, organic because they really don't fit into any definable shape and they are from something organic. They're flowers. Okay, here's another one. Grapes. Okay, what do you think about grapes? Well, again, we've got circular shapes. So you could say circles. And again, obviously, if we're thinking 3D, we're thinking sphere. But right now, just keep in mind the shapes. So we're looking at circles, but these are still organic shapes because they are of something that is organic. And then you get down here with the leaf, and the leaf definitely is organic. I would say the same thing up here with the branch, even though, you could argue that it's kind of a rectangle. But again, thinking in terms of what it is, I would call it an organic shape. Now the next one here is the challenging one. And since we're getting into the holiday season, we're going to have something that's a bit early, but a lot of the stores are already putting up Christmas decorations, so maybe it isn't that early. This graphic has what I would define as all three kinds of shapes here, organic, geometric, and abstract. So I'm going to give you a second to look at them. And first of all, can you find the geometric shapes? Can you find the organic shapes? And can you find the abstract shapes? Okay, let's start with the easy one. The easy one is geometric. And the geometric shape, of course, would at least be the circle. Some might say that the star is a geometric shape. I would personally call that an abstract shape because it's, it's a what we would represent as a star. However, it is also a pentagram, and that is a geometric shape. So it sort of covers both. How about this shape here? There's another one I would call abstract because looking at it, we know it's a Christmas tree, but the only reason we really know it's a Christmas tree is because of the context, because it's beside the star and the ball and the snow, and they're all colored red. But if you took this shape out of this whole picture and just looked at it separately, you might recognize it as a tree. You might not. Depends on how you're seeing it and in what context. You might think it's kind of a weird looking triple arrow pointing up. Who knows? And then there's one more up here. We've got these little snowflakes. And the snowflakes, again, are kind of double. They're geometric in the sense that as a crystal, they're very orderly and kind of follow that kind of a pattern. But I would call these also organic shapes because again, they really are not fitting into any traditionally understood shape. So, okay, then one more, and we're actually going to draw this one. And obviously, this one shouldn't be too difficult. It is an organic shape. Get my colors there correctly. And let me get on the right layer again. Oops, I need to move that layer down actually a little bit. Or move this layer up. You can't see what I'm doing because of I've got my layers panel on a different screen. There we go. Okay. So now we got mushrooms. Now, if I'm going to draw these mushrooms, I'm going to do it very quickly, not going into a lot of detail because we don't have just a ton of time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my understanding of shape to help me draw the mushrooms. So as I look at them, and incidentally, if you're watching the art class videos, Pat Nepoli does this with a picture of a cat. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just look here and I'm going to begin to identify the shapes. And let me actually go here and let's mark these so you can see them. I've got kind of an oval here. And I've got an oval here. Remember, we're thinking flat right now. We're not doing shading. We're not trying to make a 3D picture. Okay, so I've got here this kind of shape. Got another oval here. And then I've got another kind of a misshapen oval here, kind of very lumpy. And then again, I got kind of a rectangle. And so even though these are organic shapes, if I'm trying to draw, I'm trying to identify the shape that is going to make it easiest for me to reproduce what I'm seeing. So in this case, even though these are organic shapes, I'm thinking, okay, again, oval here, kind of a misshapen oval here, sort of a rectangle, there's an ellipse, another ellipse, another rectangle with kind of curved ends, and an oval. So if I were to draw that, then I'm going to come down here. And as opposed to the slow kind of drawing that we would do with contour drawing, I'm actually going to go a bit faster because right now I'm thinking of working with shapes. And so what I want to do is I want to get the general shape down, and then I would come back and refine what I'm drawing. So I'm just going to come around here. So this would be a very early sketch, kind of just giving me the feel. Right here I see this little triangle, which is just kind of the bottom of the stem. And then I'm going to come over here. And again, something that you always want to begin to do as you do this is look at relationships, where things are in relation to one another. Okay, so then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw my kind of misshapen, whoa, that got really thick, oval. Almost looks like a bean, doesn't it? I love kidney beans, and I'm a Southerner where, well, I live in the South where they do not put beans in their chili, but I grew up in the North where we do, and I love those big kidney beans in chili. They're just really wonderful. Now I'm hungry. Okay, so, okay. Now that's just a really quick sketch. And yet that's what I do. Like when I'm doing that portrait, the faces that I draw, this is kind of how I start, is I'm just laying out shapes, and then I'm going to go back and refine, and I'm going to adjust, and then I may even start doing a little bit of contour drawing as I modified contour as I look at my subject, and I may come in and adjust, like, okay, I compare this to this. This isn't the same angle, so I'm going to kind of come in there and tweak that. Need to use my eraser a little bit. Hopefully it's not too big. There it is. I'm going to come in and adjust a little bit. Same thing here. Oops. My tablet got a little bit misaligned, so where my pen is going is not where it's drawing, and that can be frustrating. Okay, but I don't have time to fix it. Okay, so now as I come back and I look at the relationship here, I notice, well, this isn't quite where it needs to be. It's not as long as it should be, and it should actually be going over. It should be overlapping here. So I'm going to bring that over a bit more. And one thing that you can do that I'm not doing here, just mostly for sake of time, is if you're working digitally, I would typically do that first sketch on one layer, then I'd create another layer and draw what I'm doing now on top of that first layer so that I can kind of switch back and forth. And then when I've improved my second layer and got things looking better, then I would just delete the underlying layer, and I would lose all those extra strokes. Okay, and then here this circle isn't quite right, so let's bring that out and broaden it out a little bit. Now it's actually overlapping more, and you don't have to perfectly reproduce everything that you see in in a drawing like that. So and then if I wanted to get even more fancy, I might identify shapes in the coloring and in the shadowing. I'm not going to do that here because, again, we're trying to just stay flat. So so if you're drawing along with me, then I will, after I'm done, I will post this picture to both the website and our Facebook page, and you can download that and work from it, and draw some of your own mushrooms from it. And I would encourage you to just get some, start looking at photos, and not just photos, but everything around you, and begin to identify what you're seeing in what shapes you're seeing in the things that you're trying to draw, or that you're interested in drawing. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn that off. And I come down here, and just before we wrap things up, show you again how an understanding of shape can kind of help you draw at least a few things. Now let's get this here. That's not the pen I wanted. That's the pen I wanted. One of my favorite subjects to draw are seascapes. I love drawing the ocean. I love seeing the ocean, going to the ocean, although I haven't gone much in many years. I'm not much of a swimmer, honestly. And I wrote a book about a surfer, and I actually got to try surfing a few years ago, just for the purposes of the book, and I wasn't particularly good at it. It's a little bit brighter than I'd like, but I was not good at all. In fact, I never even made it to where I was standing up. So that kind of tells you how good a surfer I was. But let's make that a bit darker. I don't like that color. It's too bright. Okay. But, whenever I see seascapes and I see stormy seas with the waves splashing everywhere and looking scary, I tend to remember the stories of out of the Gospels when Jesus would be in the boat with the disciples, and they're crossing the Sea of Galilee, and a storm comes up, and they're freaking out because these are seasoned fishermen. They think they're gonna drown, and so they are scared to death. And Jesus is fast asleep in the back of the boat. And that must have been a challenge because those boats weren't just terribly big. And if the storm was bad enough to scare seasoned fishermen to the point where they were fairly sure they were going to drown, then it was pretty bad. And Jesus was fast asleep. It also, I think, kind of shows how tired he probably was. And they come to him and they wake him up, and they say, "Master, we're about to die here. Don't you care about us? Can't you at least help us to bail out, get the water out of the boat?" And Jesus wakes up and doesn't seem to be at all bothered by what he is seeing. Not at all concerned. And it says that he got up and he rebuked the winds and the waves and said, "Peace, be still." And then he looks at the disciples and says, "Why were you so afraid? How is it that you don't have any faith?" They had been with him. They'd seen the things he did. And yet when they were in the midst of the storm and the water was threatening to splash into the boat and sink them, they were just fairly sure that they were all going to die, and they didn't trust Jesus to get them through. And that's kind of what we tend to be like at times is we're really big about faith and trusting God until things get really rough, and then sometimes we say, "God, where are you? I really need you right now, and things are scary and things are dark, and can't you can't you help at the moment?" When things get that dark and that scary, just remember that he is there, and just like the Israelites, there was a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud during the day, and a pillar of fire at night. And I don't know what that actually looked like, but I know it was a comfort to the people of Israel because it symbolized, the very presence of God. And, we can't see him like that now. Someday we will. Someday we'll see him face to face. But the joy is knowing that, he is there, and, he will take care of us, and he is there for us when things get rough, even in the middle of a pandemic. He's there, and he will take care of you. Well, we are out of time. I hope you have enjoyed this class. Next week, we're moving on to the third element of art, which is space. Not outer space, but space nevertheless. And you're going to learn how an understanding of space will help you draw too. Thanks for watching. I'm Jim Pence with See the Light. Be sure and check out all of our stuff online, and I'll see you next week. And oh, yeah, when you're drawing, draw every day, and don't forget to have fun. I'll see you next week.